milking them.
Sumaroni.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and can I first of all take the opportunity to say happy birthday to every horse in New Zealand. They all turn a year older today, and I've got a wonderful birthday present with a bronze medal from our eventing team. Congratulations to them. The member who just resumed his seat has asked for good ideas from this side of the House. Well, I'll give the member some. Extending paid parental leave. What about a $15 minimum wage? What about requiring 75% of our parliament to agree before we sell our precious state assets? There's just three great ideas that have come from this side of the House just in the last week alone. Just the last week alone. Mr Oakenfold asked for great ideas from this side of the House, and I think they've been flooding forward in this parliament, but not from the government, from this side of the House. And I want to focus for a little while on the 75% requirement for a vote before we can, in this House, before we can sell state assets, because that's what a sensible government would do, but not this government. They are hell-bent on selling our most profitable state assets to private interests. And why is that? Why are they so hell-bent on it? Despite everything going wrong for them and the shambles that it's turning out to be, they are still hell-bent on doing it. And I think the New Zealand public knows in their gut that the reason for that is because them and their rich mates get to profit out of buying shares in our most valuable and profitable assets. That's the real reason that underlies this. But it's a complete shambles from the public's perspective, because we've got a loyalty scheme that the Prime Minister is talking about, but he doesn't know the cost of it. He never costed the loyalty scheme before he announced it. What a shambles. And the estimates go from $250,000 to $500,000. Oh no, that's not. That's several more zeros than that. And the brokerage fees, there's been $1 million spent so far, and nothing's even been sold. Nothing's been sold yet, but there's $1 million being spent so far. And then there's the cost of iwi settlements over water rights, and the cost of advertising and PR. John Key and Bill English won't say what the cost of that is. They won't even tell the New Zealand public how much money they're spending on advertising to flog off their state assets. And then there's the lost revenue from those very profitable state assets that the government didn't even write into the budget. So it's a complete and utter shambles, but they are hell-bent on doing it despite the interests of the New Zealand public. Mr Speaker, I want to talk about amnesia. Because it's an affliction. It's something that's deeply afflicting the National Act Cabinet. Take John Banks, for example. He seems not to remember, despite the fact that the police can confirm it, that he personally solicited at least $80,000 in donations, but he can't seem to remember it. Now, there's a video game called Amnesia. Its subtitle is The Dark Descent. Amnesia, The Dark Descent. And I think that's exactly what's happening to that cabinet opposite, because it's catching. This amnesia is actually catching, because Bill English had amnesia last week too. He couldn't remember that he actually overinflated the cost of paid parental leave by almost twice in order to try and justify his financial veto on that. So the amnesia seems to be spreading from John Banks. Oh, John Key, he forgot about shares that he'd bought. He forgot about what his position might have been on apartheid. There's a whole range of things, a whole lot of amnesia that's going on there. And I would say, are they fit to govern? If they cannot remember really important facts like personally soliciting at least $80,000 in donations and seeming to forget that, I would ask, is John Banks fit to be a cabinet minister if he's got that level of amnesia? But of course, the New Zealand public know that of course he doesn't suffer from amnesia. What he suffers from is a lack of ethics. And what the Prime Minister also now suffers from is a lack of ethics, because he once said that he was going to lift the bar. He was going to have high standards for his cabinet ministers, but he seems to have forgotten that. Amnesia again. Now he says ethically it's perfectly fine for John Banks to have actually broken the electoral law but to remain as a cabinet minister. And that shows that the higher standards are actually dropping. In Mr Key's defence, that was last term. This term, he seems to be a tired Prime Minister who's forgotten all about higher standards.
Maggie Barry.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have always believed that saving the planet starts in your own backyard, and that's why I